This is a checklist for media mindfulness, designed for people who have already read my book, Media Mindfulness, Building a Balanced Diet for the Brain, and would like perhaps a bit more structure. In my book, I apply Howard Gardner's famous construct of multiple intelligences to my construct of media mindfulness. Each one of Howard Gardner's 8 multiple intelligences represents a different medium of thought, a different way that we experience consciousness, or a different way of attending the world. Each one of those mediums has its either receptive or expressive mode. So, for example, in my book, I explain how sleep and dreams provide critical interpersonal awareness via the processing of unconscious issues. That's why getting a good night's sleep with plenty of dreams is the most important thing anyone can do for their own personal mental health and for their balance in life. So if we think of that process alone, the receptive part of that process, sleep itself, is rather easy. The expressive mode, dreaming, is less easy. We know for a fact that when people are dreaming, their minds and their bodies are at work. Their brain waves are nearly as active as when they are when we're busy at work doing some mental task, such as accounting. Anyone who's ever had a bad nightmare knows that dreams can be really, really hard work and oftentimes quite taxing on both our bodies and our minds. Why do we dream? Well, that question is tackled in my book. But one thing we know for sure is that we wouldn't dream unless it was very, very important. Though we might think of dreaming as a receptive process, it is actually an active, expressive process, and one that is critical for our mental health. Interpersonal experience on a daily basis is extremely important. I go in length in my book talking about how retirement is oftentimes the absolute worst decision an older person can make in their life, when what they really need to do is maintain their social connections with others, while retiring typically cuts their social relationships with anyone other than their immediate family. If you're lucky enough to live in a home with family, a lot of your interpersonal engagement is simply receptive or passive. Simply living at home with your family engages you on an interpersonal level. You don't even really have to talk to people in the same house that you live in to experience the comfort of just being in the presence of others whom you love and who love you. Interpersonal engagement with people outside of your home is more challenging. It requires effort or work. It's more of an expressive, active experience. You certainly can't experience it just by sitting at home and doing nothing, although social media would trick you into believing that is so. And that is truly the danger of social media. But in order to be truly engaged interpersonally with others outside of your home, you need to go outside of your home. That is extremely important, and I discuss it in length in my book. Perhaps my most controversial assertion in my book is that music, one of Howard Gardner's 8 multiple intelligences, is equally as important as the other modes of engagement, equally as important as interpersonal engagement, or linguistic engagement, or even bodily kinesthetic engagement. I believe that music has the power to both soothe the soul and heal the heart. If you're not using music expressively, but only receptively, you're not experiencing the full benefits of musical engagement and how that musical engagement can change your personal life as well as your interpersonal life. Playing your own music, playing your own instrument, and or singing with your own voice is critical. And if you're not doing that, you're not experiencing full musical engagement. I discuss in my book how recorded music was really a mortal blow to the human soul because it made it possible for us to experience music in a purely receptive, passive manner, thus obsolescing the need to learn how to create your own music in an expressive, active manner. It is incredibly important that each one of us engages musically, not just receptively, but expressively. And I believe much of the anxiety, depression, and sorrow, and pain in this world is a direct result of the abandonment of musical skills in the individual for recorded music. Everything I just said about music can also be applied to visual art. The screen has replaced the canvas for the human being. We no longer create our own art. We merely look at the art created by others. We engage in receptive, passive appreciation of art when the true appreciation of the medium comes from expression. The linguistic medium is the most complex and also the most embedded system within our modes of thinking. Consciousness, to a very large degree, is experienced as a ribbon of sound, a string of words spoken by ourselves to ourselves in the kingdoms of our own minds. On a simplistic level, we can equate linguistic intelligence with literacy, and therefore conceive of the receptive passive mode of linguistic intelligence as reading and the expressive active mode as writing. I do that myself, and for the purpose of this checklist, that simple one-to-one equation is quite efficient. But to take a deeper understanding of how the words in our mind affect our consciousness, well, you'll just have to read my book. Humans are not logical beings, yet we force ourselves to think logically every day, most of the day. We filter our thoughts through logical mathematical symbols like dollars and cents, minutes, seconds, hours, days. All of those numeral-based symbols reflect a thinking that is constrained. On a very basic level, we could think about the constant worrying about money and time as a sort of passive engagement in logical mathematical thinking. Thinking in the logical mathematical medium of money as calculated in dollars and cents, and the logical mathematical medium of time as construed in hours and minutes is anxiety inducing, especially because we force ourselves to exist in this toxic media environment all day long. We desperately need a counterforce or release within the same medium of thought, which is why puzzles and games based on symbols, letters, and numbers are so commonly engaged in. When we are actively engaged in logical mathematical thought, such as in a puzzle or a game, it is very difficult for our minds to be simultaneously engaged in the one-pointed meditation on dollars and cents or on minutes and seconds that we tend to engage in all day long. Our head can only handle so many numbers at a time. That's why we tend to lose track of time when we're playing these games. And that's also why our mind craves these games so much. We need to find some form of logical mathematical engagement that is active, voluntary, fun, and comforting to balance our daily existences within toxic media environments that are passive, involuntary, unfun, and anxiety inducing. The world is too much with us, said William Wordsworth. We are natural beings who have lost touch with nature. Our personal well-being, as well as the health of the entire planet, depends on each one of us reconnecting with nature in meaningful ways. The wonder of nature is that since it is an environment, one need not do anything to engage. Simply being in nature is engaging with nature. Active engagement in the natural world brings us out of the gilded domestic cages we've locked ourselves in and broadens us by bringing us back to more basic ways of engagement that we have abandoned in favor of our plastic digital prison cells. Engaging with a pet or any animal, engaging with a hill or a tree as a climber, engaging with a flower or a plant as a gardener, is an increasingly urgent counterbalance to modern human existence, which has become, in both function and form, anti-nature. Movement is so critical to basic functioning that we don't even notice its necessity until we can hardly move at all. The most fundamental rule of human activity, whether it be muscular, cellular, or neural, is use it or lose it. Absence of mobility leads to immobility. In previous generations, movement was necessary for existence. The movement required for cooking, cleaning, and all other forms of labor was passive in the sense that one had no choice, move or die. Only in the modern toxic media environment is it possible to work, eat, recreate, and socialize, all without moving an inch. The direct result is obesity, immobility, depression, and social isolation. The cure is purposeful, mindful, active bodily kinesthetic engagement as a needed addition to daily life, now that the passive required movement of life has, for so many of us, been subtracted. This checklist is a response to the unasked question, how can someone fully engage in all 8 media of thought on a daily basis? To learn more, please read my book, Media Mindfulness, Building a Balanced Diet for the Brain, by myself, William Indick.